This is a Nintendo 64, and this, well, it's also a Nintendo 64. Both of these Nintendo 64s are HDMI modded, one of them being the cheapest HDMI mod with Hi-Speedidio, and one of them being the most expensive with the Ultra HDMI. Now, this N64 is modified with the Hi-Speedidio HDMI modification. You can actually buy the modification yourself for about $40 to $50 on places like AliExpress if you know how to solder, or you could pick up one of these N64s already pre-done for about $200, $215. And this is the Ultra HDMI modded N64. Now, for the modification itself, with you still having to install it, it's about $200 to $250 if you can find it. Pre-built ones sell for up to $700 as well, and that's a lot for an N64 system. So is the Ultra HDMI modded Nintendo 64 really that much better than the Hi-Speedidio modded N64? That's what I want to find out in today's video. We're going to take a look at both of these consoles. We're going to take a look at both of these consoles' features and, of course, how they play the games. I want to give a thank you to Spawnwave for sending his Ultra HDMI modded N64 this way, even though it was disgusting and I had to clean it before putting it on camera. But without any further ado, let's get into this comparison. All right, so here is our Hi-Speedidio modded Nintendo 64, and you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, what is this aspect ratio? Going into the settings by pressing Start, B, and A, we have some different aspect ratios, and that's too small, and that's too stretched, and that's even more stretched. So does it not have 4:3 mode? Well, you put your monitor or your television into 4:3 mode, which, I mean, pretty much every monitor or television from high-end stuff like my LG CX down to this cheap $80 portable monitor I'm using to capture this footage has the ability to go into 4:3 mode, and then bam, you have a perfect 4:3 aspect ratio. It's kind of a shame that pretty much every Hi-Speedidio installation video and video showcasing this modification on YouTube does not show this, that you do have a proper 4:3 mode, because everyone thinks it's that initial stretch thing and they just write this off. But no, that's not the case. You just have to go into your settings, and you know, I guess that's kind of a nuisance for some people, but I mean, it takes all of 2 seconds. So let's go ahead and hit Start, B, and A again, and we will get into our settings once again. You can see here we have some different video modes. It kind of just adjusts like contrast and brightness. You have mild, standard, and dynamic. Kind of a game-by-game basis, I've found, as far as what I like. I usually just keep it on standard because that gets the job done, but some darker games look better with mild, and some brighter games look better with dynamic. You have different color modes you could do, so if you want like a noir style thing here, you could see here like most of these, like urine yellow, like I'm never going to use this, so I never mess around with these color modes. I just keep it on our standard things, and then we will once again cycle through our aspect ratios that you could see here, our standard one, and then this is kind of like an overscan mode where it fills up that bottom bar on the screen. If you want to do that to have a more full image, you know, I don't really care either way. Just for the purpose of this video, I'm going to keep it on aspect ratio 2. But let's take a look at a game now, and I'm going to pick a very specific game because I do enjoy the startup screen of it and the demonstration, and that is Super Mario 64. I'm using the Japanese one because of the fact that my ROM has some cheats on for it, so I just want, you know, a clean, authentic experience here. So you could see how everything looks, how the colors look, how Mario himself with his big head looks. It's kind of funny. This version of the game, there are missing sound effects. There are like quite a lot of missing sound effects in it. I guess, you know, this was Charles Martinet's first game, so I don't know, maybe they didn't want to pay him all that much or something. But yeah, you can see here Mario himself looks really good. You know, it looks really clean. Of course, this does have a demo mode that it will kick into that shows off some gameplay as well, so that way everything kind of keeps uniform between this and the Ultra HDMI N64 that we'll take a look at here. But you can see, like, I think it looks pretty darn good. Like, you know, it's N64. You are going to be restricted by certain things, but like this image quality looks nice. It looks very clean. Of course, this, I don't have any anti-aliasing hacks on or anything like that. You can do things like that to make the image look even better should you want to do that. I have a video showing how to do that as well if you want to do a program, or you can actually use Game Shark codes as well, which is maybe easier for some people if you have an EverDrive. But yeah, Super Mario 64 looking like it should, looks really good. Let's take a look at another game. And of course, you gotta look at good old Ocarina of Time, the game that I just defeated, the game that I thoroughly love. I have a full video on Ocarina of Time up on the channel. Make sure you guys go check it out. Just kind of deep diving into things. But once again, this looks very nice. You know, for original hardware, not doing emulation or anything like that, I think it looks good. You know, the colors look nice. Things look cleaned up. You don't have as much, you know, smudginess in the image quality. The textures themselves look a little bit crisper as well. So I think this kind of shows you how this system works, how this Hi-Speedidio, the cheaper mod, handles the Nintendo 64 and what kind of video quality you can expect. I will have some side-by-side comparisons later on in the video as well. But yeah, so this is the Hi-Speedidio mod, but now let's take a look at the big boy, the Ultra HDMI N64. All right, and here is our Ultra HDMI modded Nintendo 64. We're going to go into the settings by hitting the L and R trigger along with right on the D-pad and right on the C buttons, and immediately you could see you have quite a few more options than you do on the Hi-Speedidio modded N64. We have a fill mode for normal, which is 4:3, stretched, and cinema, so you don't have to worry about putting your monitor in 4:3 mode when playing on this system. So maybe that's worth it to you to not have to go into the settings of your television or your monitor to adjust it to 4:3 mode. You have overscan if you want to fill up the screen a little bit more, depending on your image that you're getting on your television or your monitor. You have gamma boost to change up brightness settings and gamma settings. We'll just keep it on 1. I think that looks the most like what we had on our standard mode for the Hi-Speedidio N64. You can add scan lines, which I know a lot of people like scan lines on their modern displays. I'm not a fan of them. I could definitely do without them, but there are options if you want them. And then we have different sorts of picture settings that we can adjust, such as a CRT HV bloom. Okay, I guess you could add those with your scan lines and have some fun with that. You have sharp pixels with integer plus mode, and fraction mode. You have de-blur for removing some blur from some N64 games. We'll put that on automatic. And we have fast interlace mode. Now, I think sharp pixels is actually kind of important with this device because that's something that gives you something that's not available on the Hi-Speedidio. So we're going to put that on integer plus, and we will see how that ends up looking. You also have some about settings, and you have your HDMI setup where you can put it into different modes. Now, this monitor I'm using is a 1080p monitor at maximum output. So we're going to go ahead and switch it to 1080p. You can do 1200p. I'm sure the difference won't be all that crazy, so you're not really missing out on much, but we'll go ahead and apply that. And hey, that looks pretty good. But I do notice we need to adjust our settings here, go down to integer or no. I guess we could do fraction. Fraction looks good. Yeah, we'll do fraction as far as that is concerned. So quite a few more options. You can see the menu itself, you know, looks pretty much the same. Maybe a little bit crisper. I think it looks a little bit crisper here. But let's go ahead and go to Super Mario 64 and watch that intro scene. And we're also going to watch the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time intro as well. And then we're going to put these, you know, pretty much side by side because I want to see, you know, how big of a difference we can actually see on these things. Now, to my eye, this looks good. Does it look substantially better than the Hi-Speedidio? Not really. You know, I mean, maybe when we do side by side, we will notice some additional things. So I'm keeping that in mind with this. But just initial first impressions, you know, it's an N64 image. We're not talking about emulation with this. We're simply talking about displaying it in the best way possible on an HD television or an HD monitor. So I'm not expecting, miracles out of this. It's not going to be like what you could do with an emulator as far as, increasing the internal resolution and stuff like that. We're using original hardware with just some exterior modifications and interior modifications to make for a different image. So there was Super Mario 64. Let's take a look at The Legend of Zelda. And here is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. And honestly, if I'm doing the eye test, I think the Hi-Speedidio looks a little bit better. And once again, that could just be because of the fact that that's what my eyes are kind of used to, because I have been playing that so much. And maybe when we do the side-by-side, I will be proven wrong on that. I am keeping an open mind with this, and I do think that this looks very, very nice, not using emulation and stuff like that. We don't really know how the analog 64 or the analog 3D is going to handle things. They promise up to 4K resolution, but is that just outputting in 4K, or is that internally upscaling things and sharpening pixels to 4K? We kind of got to wait a little bit to see with that. But now I want to put these up side by side because I think that's going to be the best sort of comparison that we can get out of both of these devices. All right, so on the left-hand side, we have the Hi-Speedidio. On the right-hand side, we have the Ultra HDMI mod. And really, I think the Hi-Speedidio looks a little bit better. Now, this could be because we are using pixel sharpening on the Ultra HDMI modded N64, but you would think that that would potentially help things out, and, that being an additional feature of this would make for something worthwhile. But I don't necessarily think it is. I think it looks, almost a little bit too sharp to the point of where you get some, little jaggies and stuff like that. But I do think that there are people that will like that. But it really comes down to, is that worth the additional price? If what you can get on the left-hand side with the Hi-Speedidio and what you can get on the right with the Ultra HDMI mod with pixel sharpening, like, is that worth the additional price to you? And for me, not really. Like, I think the Ultra HDMI modded N64 is great, don't get me wrong, because of all the different features it can do. But I feel like most of those features are going to be lost on like 95% of people. And the image quality that you get with the cheaper Hi-Speedidio, I think is just as good. I think it's just as good, if not even a little bit better at times. But it really comes down to a personal preference situation, how deep into the technology you really want to get with these systems. So is the Ultra HDMI modded N64 really that much better than our cheap Hi-Speedidio one? I'm going to say no. And I know that there's going to be people that say, well, I should have turned off the pixel sharpening on the Ultra HDMI modded footage. But to that I say, that's a feature of this system. And if it's a feature that makes the image look worse, what is a feature that makes it look better than what we have with our cheaper modification? I don't really know that there is one. I think for some people, the Ultra HDMI modded N64 is going to be the better option because you do have a bit more control over everything. But for anyone else, anyone who just wants to play a clean looking N64 image on their HD television, the cheaper alternative is just way better to me. And I was going into this video expecting me to want to like buy the Ultra HDMI modded N64 off of John, but I have no desire to do that. I am completely happy with mine, and I think I made the right choice. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think about it. Do you think that the Ultra HDMI modded N64 is good and worth the extra money, or are you happy with what you saw from the Hi-Speedidio? And yes, I did say the name of the product wrong this entire video. It's really Hi-Speedidio or something like that, but I'm not going back and changing all of it, so it's Hi-Speedidio in my world. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.